Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson, and today on the show, we have Yogi Mueller. And Yogi is a author, speaker, mentor, and has written the book called The Great Slapping, which I think is such a great title. We're going to find out what that exactly means. But Yogi, first off, welcome to the show.
Fletcher, thank you so much. It's truly an honor, sir. I'm looking forward to this.
Right on. Hey, I like to start out with a win because there's a lot of suffering going on in the world, personal suffering, global suffering, communal suffering. Let's start with something that does feel good. What's going well in your life professionally or personally?
Well, I'll tell you, you mentioned the book. That was my first book, and I was released by my company because of an acquisition last year, and freed up to pursue my entrepreneurial dreams. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to do something with my time that I was given, and I made that call that I'm going to write a book. And just over a year later, I have it. So people say it was like birthing a baby. I have no empathy. I have no understanding of what that truly is like. However, yes, it was.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to say that I set out to do something and accomplished it within the time frame I was looking for, that's a huge win for me personally and professionally.
Yeah.
So yeah, rock and roll. Really kind of living on that high right now.
Right on. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And I can relate to that. I published my first book a couple years ago, and yes, to declare to speak into the physical realm, I'm going to write a book and then actually follow through all the ups and downs of that process, which are many.
It is not a sexy ride, that's for sure.
Exactly, right? I mean, you really come up against yourself and learn some things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so well done.
Thank you.
The Great Slapping, and just kind of, I mean, it's such a curious title. You gotta let us in on it. What is the Great Slapping?
So the Great Slapping is about the power of mentorship. It's about those individuals that you've had in your life, and I know, Fletcher, if you think back over your career, you've got a few of them that saw more in you than you saw in yourself at that time, whether you were unwilling to see it or unable to see it. And they were trying to push you, and eventually it might have gotten to the point where they literally grabbed you by the shoulders, shook you a little bit, and with the proverbial backhand said, stop it or go in this direction. And the reason I call it the Great Slapping is because the jolt of reality, that kind of moment of, okay, that feedback hurt, there was a little bit of pain, but then comes the clarity after some of those slaps. And to me, that's the power of mentorship. I in the book, I tell stories of when I received the slapping and when I've had to deliver it as a mentor. And if you've got a great relationship with that other individual, you know that pain was delivered with love and an insane amount of passion in investing in you and your development.
This is such a great message. I really hope our audience is paying attention to this. It is so significant when we have that person in our life to deliver that slap, right? Yeah, I've had several of those opportunities in my life where I was the person who got the slapping, right? And yes, uncomfortable for
Absolutely.
sure, very uncomfortable, but it was the catalyst I needed for that next level of growth. So very intriguing concept. So next question for you, Yogi. What's your vision? This is called Vision Pros Live. What is your vision?
Well, it really has been filtered by the lens of the content of the book that I've been writing for the last year. My vision was part of why I wrote it. And that's because I fear for the future of mentorship in our society. And that's dangerous, honestly, because I see the experience going in this direction and the inexperienced, the young, going in this direction. And what's in the middle? Technology, patience for one another, an inability to receive constructive feedback and not see it as an attack, versus an investment. And I think those things, if we don't get a handle on it, that's the problem. And somebody says, well, why do you need a mentor when you can go to ChatGPT and type a question, you're going to get an answer? I said, yeah, absolutely. The algorithm is going to get you an answer to whatever you want, whatever you put in there. But it's not going to give you the answer because they believe in you. They see your potential. They see your mistakes. Anytime ChatGPT answers that you're God's gift to everything and they just butter you up. Well, a good mentor is not going to do that. And that's where we need to get back to in a lot of areas. And this is why the call to action is, get a mentor, be a mentee, but we need to save the practice and ensure that time honored traditions. And I've got references back to Greek mythology. We need to continue it, or we're going to be just as automated as ChatGPT is.
Yeah. So you're seeing one demographic go this way, the younger demographic go this way, and what you're saying, if I'm understanding you, is there's a disconnect, and in the middle is this technology, but that can't really bridge the gap in a very meaningful way. Is that accurate?
That's correct. I think if you look at mentorship holistically, it is filled with nuance. And whether it's facial expressions, whether it's understanding your true potential, understanding where your personal opportunities are, you're not going to necessarily get that from technology. Now, we could talk AI, but we could also talk delivery of methodologies, right?
Mm-hmm.
The impatience of certain groups to not want to just text with somebody else. Or why can't they have a phone call? Why can't they have a FaceTime conversation or a personal conversation? And then the other groups are, well, why don't they just work with me? Why don't they find a happy ground? Why do I need to be in the same room with somebody to have a conversation with them? And traditional versus new, I guess, is kind of an age-old argument there. And we just need to find those bridges for everybody, right? Now, some people have found a way to get across, and others we don't. And I honestly, Fletcher, I think one of the worst things that we can propagate is potential unrealized. To me, that hits at the core. I mentioned in my book, if we're not reaching a person in their 20s and really kind of helping them navigate things, because you hear people in the Gen Z, a lot of them feel alone. A lot of them feel that they're the most connected but disconnected generation. We can help with that. We just, when I say we, the more experienced, the gray, hair here, we have experience that we can share. But if we don't have the patience to find that middle ground too, that's a problem as well. So that's what I'm seeing. It's a divergence. I don't see a full, complete split. However, if that divergence continues, the fabric is going to tear.
Yeah. You're seeing that trajectory. You're seeing that pattern play out. And I like your analogy there. Yeah, the fabric will tear. And then when that happens, then you've got a real crisis on your hand. There's a real division at that point. So I love this conversation. I'm a huge fan of mentorship. I'm a mentor myself. I'm in an official capacity with a high school student. Awesome. And it is invaluable. It's so important. The difference that a person can make in another person's life is incredible. Just an hour to a week. It is when a young person has an opportunity to and is open to learning, right? Mm-hmm. Huge potential there. I'll give you just a quick example.
Yeah.
With this particular person I'm mentoring, hardworking individual, has some struggles in school and zero knowledge about finances. Hardworking, has a job, but blows all his money right away. So as a result of our conversation about finance, I've realized what he really wants to do is be an entrepreneur and have wealth. But he has zero head knowledge about it. So we started talking about opening up a bank account, investing, opening up an E-Trade account. And his eyes just got so big when he began to see what is possible, right? And just a simple conversation like that could change the trajectory of an individual's life. And I'm not taking the credit for that. I'm just saying, like, that's what's possible when we open ourselves up to relating to people in this manner.
No, first of all, I knew that you were impacted by mentorship, both as a recipient, and a purveyor of it. And this happens a lot when I talk about the book, or I get messages from readers. They read it, and I can see your Rolodex going, right? I can see you reviewing those relationships that you had and that you're currently at, and the impact that was created. So absolutely knew you were somebody rooted there. I think you hit it right on the nose when it comes to that accountability, that self accountability piece, opening yourself up to learning. You know, one of the things that I created is what we call the embrace the grit mindset, or the grit, and I have a grit index assessment, and it stands for get over yourself, reassess with honesty, invest in improvement, and treasure the lessons of growth. Because I think fundamentally that's where you need to start. You have to work with somebody, and this goes for mentors as well, that is open to feedback, that does understand that even though it slaps, there's always a kernel of truth in every piece of feedback. And if you're not open to it, I'm throwing darts at a wall that doesn't even have the board, right? And I'm just kind of wasting my time, right? But I love that you said. It doesn't take a lot of investment. It just takes maybe just a brief moment of time. I'm going to share a story from the book. I was teaching grad school, and I had a young man in my class, and he was probably 26, 27. He was, more established. Smartest kid I knew. And he was so passionate and had so much potential, but he would show up to late work or show up to class late. He was sloppy. He didn't turn in assignments. And he just I never saw him apply that potential that was so palpably obvious in him. So I pulled him aside one day and I basically laid into him. I said, "What the hell are you doing? You are smart. You're creative. You're talented, blah, blah." And I just went off on him. And I said, "Why? You have so much value. Why aren't you bringing it to the table?" And this 27-year-old kid or so starts crying. I felt horrible, right? But he was like, "Nobody has ever told me that."
Mm-hmm.
It was a gut punch, Fletcher.
Yeah.
Absolute gut punch. His teachers, his guidance counselors, even his parents either told him physically that he was not going to accomplish anything, or just the way that he treated, he internalized that.
Yeah.
And you talk about that roadblock that potential hit. It was just that one comment literally can change the trajectory of somebody's life.
Yeah.
A lot of power. A lot of power.
There's so much power, right? Yeah. Words matter. And our willingness to step up and offer feedback is so important. And I want to bring one distinction to this conversation, because I really appreciate that conversation you had with that young man. Frequently, we are reluctant to provide authentic feedback because of a conversation in our head, which is, "Oh, that might offend them. That might hurt their feelings. I don't know if they can handle that." And the point that I want to make is what we're doing is we're making that person small. We've decided that they can't handle it. And that's a huge disservice. Instead of thinking, you know what, this person could benefit potentially from this feedback, and I'm going to trust that they can handle it. And I'm going to trust that we can have that conversation and that something good will come of it. Right? Both are stories in our head.
Right.
And it's just, and which one do you want to focus on?
I think that's one of the reasons why I fear, right? Because there's this general, and I'm generalizing here, right? But there is this overlay where people are offended easily these days, and they take things as attack, and they take things as personal. And so I can see somebody with that apprehension about not wanting to share that, because you might get a full volley back at you, and it definitely wasn't intended, right? I think one of the things I talk about is the foundations of mentorship, and that is first and foremost trust. That if that trust doesn't exist, you're not going to get that dialectic conversation with an open understanding that this person is investing in me.
Yeah.
Right. And that comes with relationships. So one of the next kind of phase I'm working through is the difference between coach and a mentor. And I think mentor is a loaded word, and it comes with a lot of baggage that not might just intimidate the mentees. It might intimidate people that really could be mentors as well because of all the loaded emotional side that a mentorship has. And so I'm going to campaign right now to if companies are starting mentorship programs, maybe don't call that because about 70% of all mentorship programs in organizations fail within the first year, and I'm kind of working through some of that. So I 100% agree with you that fear, that apprehension of listening to the feedback or even delivering it is part of that divide that's ripping the fabric of this. We need to find that solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, yeah, establish trust, like work on always, lead with a way of being that allows for people to trust you. And people are willing to trust us when they feel heard, supported, and they feel safe.
Absolutely. 100%. Right.
Yeah.
And so, okay. So then you're absolutely right. So what then has to happen is the more traditional communicators need to figure out a way, the less or the nuanced communicators, right? Because face-to-face communication, and again, I'm being very general, tends to be threatening, tends to be overloaded or way too much input for that person to process. So we need to figure out a way to do that, to bridge that gap. And that's part of the technology divide too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to switch gears a little bit because people listening to this conversation, they might think, yeah, there's value in the mentor-mentee relationship, but I don't think I have any skills to offer as a mentor. Could you address that concern that people might be thinking in their head?
Absolutely. So one of my early readers of the book messaged me and said, I never considered myself a mentor until I read your book. And I've known this person for a long time. And I said, do you realize that you were a Girl Scout leader for 15 years and you worked with these girls since they were like 8? And now most of them have gone on to be, the full-time permanent Girl Scouts. And I said, you weren't just teaching them how to sell cookies. They would call you if they needed life advice. They would call you for your experience. You slapped them often, not just within the constraints of Girl Scouts, but you became somebody that was important to them outside of that structure. You believed in them. You invested in them, not because you had some sort of pin that said you were a Girl Scout leader. You gave them this information. You educated, you developed them because you believed in them.
Yes.
And my oldest daughter, I count as one of her mentees because she played such an important part in her development. And I said, don't ever diminish your thinking and where you were. And she says, well, I always thought mentors were something in a business where it was like structured and it was all about, getting this person ready for this other position. I said, no. So yeah, there are people out there that have been mentors, but don't have the understanding to open themselves up to, yes, they were. Right.
Yeah.
And I also kind of demystify it a little bit because, like I said, mentorship is a loaded word. And it's scary for some people because it requires emotional investment in there. But the bottom line, Fletcher, is if you see a seed that is going to be a giant tree one day, you can't tell that seed to grow. You can't make it grow. You've got to create the scenario around it, the soil, the water, the nutrients, the sunlight, whatever it is, in order for it to fully get to where you want to be. And that's where mentorship comes in. I like the phrase, happiness is planting a seed of a tree whose shade you will never enjoy. And that's what gets me up every morning.
That's cool. I haven't heard that before. That's neat. Happiness is planting a seed of a tree whose shade you will never enjoy.
Yeah. And you hinted at it too with the finance. You're not looking to make money off of your mentees. You are investing in them, and they might make $1 million one day and you might be dead. But that's not the reason why you're doing it.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff. Hey, we're coming up towards the end of our conversation here, and I'm really appreciating and feel enthusiastic about your
Good.
messaging
Firing
here.
you up. Let's fire up your audience.
That's right. Boy, if you've ever thought about becoming a mentor, I want to encourage you, if you're listening to this, really bring a spotlight to that and consider it. You likely have something of value to offer. I believe that we all do. We've all lived a unique experience in our lifetime. You have something to offer this world. Step into that. Embrace it. Own it. Be open to it. It may be the very thing that's going to make a big difference in someone else's life.
You can change a life.
Yeah. Pretty exciting. Yogi, if people want to find out more about the great slapping, again, I love that title. Where can they reach out to you, get a copy of the book, and learn more about what you're offering?
Oh, thank you. Well, you can go to craftleadership.net, which not only has links to buy the book and an ebook, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, places like that. But it also has a link to the Grit Index assessment to really kind of understand where's your ability to listen and do work with feedback on there. And that would be a kind of a one-stop shop there.
Right on. Okay. Thanks so much for being on the show today. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson. Thanks for joining us here on Vision Pros. Now it's your turn to get out there, be a source of kindness, be a source of contribution. You do have something to offer this world, and I believe in you.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.